Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to the TheTecherz. I'm Surmeet Singh and hope everyone is having an amazing day. And today we are going to discuss about semiconductors. See, when we study about semiconductors, there's a lot of questions come in our mind, but nobody discusses about it in our classes, such as they just start with the topic, and thus a lot of us not able to understand and get the full concept of the semiconductors. See, some of the common questions are like, why do we study about them? And why are semiconductors introduced and started being used instead of the conductors? Even though the conductors offer easier flow of electricity, why do we use semiconductors in electronics when they offer partial flow of electricity? See, we will discuss about all of them and why is semiconductors so important. See, first of all, there are many semiconductors in the nature, but the main ones that we study are silicon and germanium, and even among them, silicon is the one that we use due to its high availability, which is abundance. So before semiconductors were used in electronics, to perform the same computation that we perform today using them, large vacuum tubes were used. But the main drawback of these vacuum tubes were their enormous size. Some of them were as large as a building, making the equipment very bulky. On the other hand, they used to heat up a lot due to flow of electricity and resistance in the wire, and because they required high power to operate. Now, this heating up of the conductors reduced their conductivity, as that is the characteristics of the conductor, that their conductivity decreases with the increase in temperature. So the semiconductors were introduced because the main property that they have is that their conductivity increases with the increase in temperature. But it was also observed that their conductivity can be controlled by different forces or energies, such as light or heat, thus making them a very good material to make sensors. While using them, with further research, it was discovered that doping them with phosphorus and boron can increase their conductivity by making them an N-type semiconductor, N for negative charge, and a P-type semiconductor, P for positive charge. And when these doped semiconductors were used, some of the scientists started combining them to form a junction known as p-n junction, all right, and making a diode. Now, a diode is, as discussed last time in the first video, it only allows current in the flow of current only in one direction, which is called as a forward bias condition, where the P type of this part of the diode is connected to the positive terminal of the battery, and the N type of the diode is connected to the negative side of the battery, negative terminal of the battery, right? That is known as forward bias, and it stops the flow of electricity or stops the current in reverse bias. That is, the terminals of the battery are reversely connected to the diode. And diodes also helped in taking advantage of semiconductors' sensitivity to light. That is, when the light falls on them on certain type of semiconductors or certain doping or certain modification in them, they start to conduct electricity, making sensors known as photodiodes. They also made uh, invention of solar panels possible. And this same property of diode was further modified into make now, instead of sensing the light, they were made to emit the light, which led to the development of LEDs, or known as light emitting diodes, and even laser diodes. After diodes were made, now a scientist attempted to make a triode by having a junction between three type of diodes, like NPN, which is N-type, P-type, and N-type, or PNP, P-type, N-type, P-type. And while that junction was formed, it was observed that the first transistor was made, known as BJT, or bipolar junction transistor, because it has a junction of two poles, bipolar junction. And when their behavior was observed, it was observed that they amplify the signal, thus making the first amplifiers possible. Alongside this, another study was being conducted on the surface property of silicon. And now the scientists coated the surface of silicon with an insulating layer of silicon oxide, which is a metal oxide that led to the making of MOSFETs, or their other name, as the property suggests, metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. And they work because it is coated with the metal oxide layer on top, and they work on the field effect, the transistor. And the invention of MOSFET is very, very crucial in electronics, because that made the production of ICs possible, which is integrated circuits. Now it also, on the other hand, it also made the scalability possible, which is now as the old vacuum tubes were used, which were as large as a building, now the same computation, same things are just in the size of micrometers or nanometers, which we can't even see anymore. Now making a lot of things possible, they require lesser space, and they require much less power to operate, making it possible to the technology as we know today. So that's why the transistor, this MOSFET, is the main component to study in the electronics, because that's what made the modern computers, or even smart phones, smart watches, or everything possible that we know of today. Thank you very much. And if you liked the video, if you understood, do comment about that. And if there's any other things that you want me to cover, any feedback, please do comment. Thank you for today. See you next time.